Hello and welcome to the Music is My Life podcast from Berkeley Online. I'm your host, Pat Healy, and take note that at the end of this episode, you'll have an opportunity to take a Berkeley Online course for $100 off the original price. Stay tuned for the credits or look for the details in the meta description of this episode to find out how. Now, take note of Eddie Grant. His musical life has lasted the better part of 50 years. Boy! He first found success as a teenager in the 1960s with the Equals. Then a car accident and a heart attack at the age of 23 forced him to quit the band. So he built his own studio, transitioning from the touring life to the production side of the music business. Then he took some vocal lessons and began a solo career, which led to even greater success with songs like Electric Avenue and I Don't Want to Dance, the latter of which he is convinced would have been a bigger hit in the US if only Electric Avenue wasn't so massive. Anyway, for Eddie, it all started with his dad, who was a professional musician but always wanted Eddie to be a doctor rather than follow in his musical footsteps. Eddie Grant figured out a way to do both. Let's let him tell you all about the first music he heard.
The first music would have been my father playing the trumpet. My father was a fantastic trumpet player. And because we lived under meager circumstances, he was playing while I would be very close to him, as would everybody else in the room. And then as I grew a little older, not much older, but Calypso, the voice of the Mighty Sparrow, Lord Kitchener, and these absolute greats who we have in this area.
And so how many years were you in Guyana?
I was there for a full 12 years of life.
And what brought your family to England?
Well, it was post-colonial, where everybody in the Caribbean thought that England's streets were paved with gold, and we were encouraged to go there. My father, like so many other fathers and mothers, saw it as an opportunity to better their social conditions, so to speak, and economic one as well. That's how come, basically, we all ended up there.
And was your father playing trumpet professionally or as a hobby?
No, my father played professionally in Guyana, and he played all around the Caribbean with his band, which was called Nello and the Luckies. Then when he went to England, he played again professionally alongside all the other Caribbeanites who went up there, men like Harry Beckett, also played trumpet, Iggy Quayle, who played keyboards, piano, brilliant guys, and they played the nightclubs and so on.
And were you interested already and knew it was something you wanted to do, or was it just something your dad did? Or
I was interested in playing the trumpet from the time I heard it. Mm-hmm. And I played it. I mean, not very nicely, especially on a Sunday morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was interested from that time. He tried to get me to play piano many years later, and I regret it till this day. I mean, I play a little bit, but I'm not Tchaikovsky or any great piano player. I'm not Bach or Beethoven or these people, but I get by. I can record, and that is sufficient for me. But I love the trumpet, and the trumpet became my first instrument at the age of 12. By then I was in England, and they'd already had a dedicated teacher for me to teach me that which my father wasn't already teaching me, and he was teaching me a lot. So I very quickly got into the school's orchestra, where we were playing classical music and traditional jazz, basically. That was my love at the time, because traditional jazz was very all-permeating, as I would say, in England and throughout Europe, I suppose. There were lots of jazz bands that were playing traditional jazz.
Right. So it's about what?
1960, 61, yeah.
That's great. So what were some of the records you were listening to?
Oh, I listened to, you can't imagine, if my father was a great trumpet player, he hung with other great trumpet players and or other great musicians. So I heard everything from Ben Webster, Shirley Scott, Nat Adderley, Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis. You call them, I name them, I've heard them. I was schooled on them.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was hearing the great Errol Ince from the Caribbean, who was seriously a trumpet player. And as I said, primarily the Mighty Sparrow for the Calypso content, the Calypso way.
Right. And did you ever join your dad on stage during those early years?
No, I never was allowed to, because you got to understand, although my father taught me to play the trumpet, it was not his intention that I be a musician.
Really?
You know, he wanted me to go to medical school, as did I. I mean, I didn't want to play trumpet professionally. I just saw it as something that I could do at university or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know how it goes. If it's in the blood, blood's thicker than mud.
And speaking of blood, how many siblings were in your house growing up?
It seemed like 100, but we had 5.
Did they play also?
They all dabbled a little bit, but not significantly. You got to understand, my relationship with music is very serious. And their relationship with music was to get to girls or whatever it is, you know, and I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in being the best.
So when did you first take it to the stage?
I think it was my 4th year at school. I made a guitar, a real guitar, something that looks like a Gibson Les Paul standard. I made that with the help of my woodwork master, and because I really by then had gotten into pop music and that sort of thing. So I really wanted to have a guitar and play a guitar as well. But my father didn't have the wherewithal to buy a guitar and an amp. He said, if you make the guitar at school, because I was very good at woodwork, he said, if you make the guitar, I'll buy you the amp. Is that a deal? I said, yeah, that's a deal. And so off I went and made the guitar. And my dad helped me to get the amplifier, and therein started my pop music and music in general career.
Yeah. Did you take lessons?
Well, informally, if you like, because as I said, my father had around him some of the best Caribbean musicians ever. I would sit with them during their rehearsals and stuff like that. And they had 2 guys living in the house that my father owned in London. And they were from St. Vincent, I think, or St. Lucia, one of the 2. They played guitar, as well as one of them, I think, played sax. And so I had an opportunity to watch them as they rehearse. And, you know, there were some guys there who were not intent on showing any kid how to hold the chords and so on. And when I see the chords, I'd say, hey, show me what that was just now. And some of them would hide it. But these 2 guys, they showed me, you know, how to make a barre chord, how to, you know, make the various lines or how to hold certain kinds of chords, which are not easy for me because I have very small hands.
Well, I imagine the action on the guitar you made. I mean, how was the guitar?
Well, it wasn't bad. It wasn't as high as the other guitars that I would make subsequently or use subsequently. Mm-hmm. So it was real good that I could play on it. And it's not a joke guitar. It really was a very good guitar. So good that somebody stole it.
Wow.
You know, if somebody steals your guitar, then it's gotta be something good.
Right. Then you learning guitar, and then is the Equals your first band?
Very first.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I dabbled around with guys at school, and one of them caused me to go to 89 Hazelville Road in Hornsey in London to meet up with some other guys who were jamming. Well, you know, jam sessions, until this day, I don't really like jam sessions.
How come?
It's ego time.
Yeah.
And when you're just coming into a game, you don't want to be flashing ego. You want to settle and learn. I'm always learning, you know, from everybody, even the guys who are playing badly. So I came into contact with these guys who were sort of rehearsing ad lib, all kinds of crazy things. And there were many of them in the room. And I thought, well, this isn't going to get me anywhere. So I called the drummer, John Hall, whose mother was the owner of the house, mother and father. I said, John, this thing going on out here, it ain't gonna work. It's just too noisy and too disorganized. I need organization. And he said, well, let's organize it. And I said, well, first of all, we got to think of a name. He says, well, we can always call it the Equals. And I said, well, where's that come from? Because we're black and we're white? He says, no, because each person will have an equal vote. And I thought, well, okay, that's novel. So we went back into the room and delivered the news to the other guys that we were going to dispel with most of the others and just keep a regular format. That format didn't stay too long because the guy who we chose as lead guitarist had an ego, a serious ego. He wasn't that good, but he was good enough. He was better than me, and I was better than the other guy. So one night when we were about to rehearse, I turned up with my guitar, which was very heavy, and climbing this mountainous hill, Hazelville Hill. So suddenly I saw this apparition turn up, which is this particular guy, and his name was Eddie. My name was Edmund. Nobody ever called me Eddie. I saw this through the fog, this guy holding up a girl, they're hugging up and kissing up and smooching up. And I said, "Oh, Eddie, where you going?" And he said, "Oh, well, Ed, I'm going to the pictures with my girlfriend." I said, "But we got to rehearse." He said, "Come on, Ed, you can play the leads." I couldn't. I was a rhythm guitarist. I played rhythm so that the lead singer could sing, and so that the guitarist who's playing solo didn't have to worry about timing and these things. The other guy couldn't hardly play. And I said, I really got very scared. I said, "So what's going to happen with the band?" He says, "Oh, Ed, I'm going to the pictures. I'll see you guys later." And I said, "Well, what happens to the solos?" He says, "Well, you can play the solos, can't you?" The only solo I could play was the Rolling Stones' "It's All Over Now." Honestly, and this guy was asking me now to play Beatles solos and Chuck Berry solos that I didn't know it was Chuck Berry at the time. So I had to learn very quickly because we had a gig coming up. And after having spoken to the rest of the guys, we decided to lob him out of the band and get a new chap to come in who they knew. And I didn't realize that I knew the guy as well we used to go to gym classes at school. And he was also from my school, but 1 year younger. And he also had a terrible reputation as a fighter. They called him Chopper Lloyd. So you can imagine with a name like Chopper, he's done something pretty bad. So when I saw him, I realized, Jesus, this is Lloyd who plays with us when we do the gymnastics. He was a member of the club. So I was really glad, but he couldn't play guitar. And so a lot of it was put on my back. That's how I ended up playing so loud and all of that.
At the beginning, you were playing mostly covers, or had you begun writing songs?
No, at the very beginning, we were playing things like Three Steps to Heaven and some of the Eddie Cochran songs and some of the Beatles songs and some of the Rolling Stones and Rufus Thomas. And then gradually, I really got into Chuck Berry. Or Chuck Berry got into me. I went to see Chuck at the Finsbury Park Astoria and got completely converted. I became a Chuck Berry nut. I learned all his licks and I was really Chuck Berry. And, if anybody ever said, "Oh, well, I can play Chuck Berry better than you," they were in trouble. So I took on that air, of being Chuck Berry. You ask about writing songs. I was being coerced by my friends, by a guy who would subsequently manage the Equals for a while, to consider writing songs. And I thought, well, there are millions of songs. Why do I need to write them? And the guy pointed out, well, the Beatles have started writing their songs and it's going to be a good thing for you to do. And my friend, whose name is Gus, a schoolmate, he insisted. He said to me, "Listen, there's this guy called Bob Dylan, and you can't understand a word he says, and everybody seems to like him. So if he can write songs, you who are intelligent and smart can more than write songs." I thought, well, that's not really a measure of how a songwriter should be. But if that's what my man says, then I'll try it. And so I tried, and I found out that I was good at it. Well, the rest is history, isn't it?
So at this point, you are basically in high school, right?
Well, I don't know what you call high school, but...
secondary school? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, secondary school. And yes, and I was getting ready to do my A-levels, which is the first year of university, first year med. That's when everything went crazy for me because I was now disappointing my father, who I loved tremendously. And I could see the disappointment on his face more and more as I got into playing the clubs and playing people's weddings and bar mitzvahs, playing my guitar at every possible opportunity. My father knew the signs. By the time I would get to the point where I told my father that I no longer wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be a musician, my father really cried for a whole week, because here was you have to understand the time and Caribbean people and so on and so forth. And I thought, like a doctor was better than a musician. And I could always be a doctor, but a musician was something that you needed to be when you're young. And so that was my logic. Whether it was right or wrong, it's ended me up in whatever it is that I'm involved in now.
You mentioned the part about the formation of the band and, it being racially balanced. Was that important to you?
Well, it was not really of any consequence to any of us, I don't think, because it is either you like people or you don't. I mean, it's either you get on with them or you don't. And somehow, because we are 3 black guys and 2 white guys, and I don't think in the history of music there's ever been a leader of a band with white people and black people, and the youngest one possibly until the last guy came in was me, because I had this musical background from playing the trumpet, playing in the school symphony orchestra, from playing traditional jazz, a wide knowledge of what else is going on in music around the world. I could understand every kind of music. I love calypso, but I could understand every other kind of music as well. So I call it a Catholic education, getting rid of the Catholic in religion. But in terms of its full meaning, I got a really serious education in music.
Well, you guys, the Equals, were a full year before Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh yeah. Again, I'm a great believer in faith. Whatever it is that God throws at you, you don't kick it out. You say thanks. Though these guys that I was now with, because they smoke, I didn't mean ganja or anything, they smoked cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes. Matter of fact, I hate cigarettes. And so to be in a room with these guys full of smoke, it's not something that I relished. And my father also, who got to know about it, said, "What are you doing? You're in this thing with these guys, they're all smokers and reprobates and what have you. What are you doing there? They're going to lead you the wrong way." I said, "No, Dad, I'm going to lead them the right way." And as time went by, that's what happened.
So you're playing a lot, recording, and...
No. We took a little while to record because, you see, the Equals had no bass guitar at its formation. The bass guitar came in later. We had a sound without a bass guitar. You couldn't tell that there wasn't a bass guitar. And I tried to use that sound to the maximum. Rhythm, rhythm, rhythm. What constituted the Equals sound was a rhythm sound. I spent a lot of time trying to convince people that that was going to be the next thing. And sometimes they threw me out of their offices and what have you. But eventually, something very strange happened. There was a guy called Gene Latta, a singer who was making some waves on the continent in Europe. He lived next door to where my father's house was, where I lived. I didn't know him. We used to rehearse at a club called the All-Star Club, which was owned by a gentleman called Ken Edwards. Lovely guy. And I was introduced to him by a friend, a Rasta friend of a friend of mine who lived in my father's house. The first night we went out, he took me to this club and Stevie Wonder was on. It's a very small place. It could only have been about 25 feet across by about 15 feet. And Stevie was playing in there. And the place was raining inside. You can imagine. It was so humid. It was raining, literally, in the club. I got to know this guy. The Rasta guy said to him, I was a good friend of his, and I had a little group of youngsters, and he should give us a break. And that guy took his word and he gave us a break. But he was in love with Otis Redding, James Brown, and the American contingent of soul. They were the soul kings. And so he wanted our band to be soul kings. And I said, no, we are not that. And, I have very strong opinions about music that's made me friends and made me enemies. But this particular time, the guy, he put up with us because he needed somebody to fill in his Sunday nights. Sunday was a bad night. And so he auditioned the Equals as we were then constituted. And we passed because they had one person in the club, and that one person was a white girl, and she loved what we were playing or what we were doing. We had a full stage act, a bit like the Vibrations, that great American band. We were very active on stage and all of that, which made us very exciting as young kids. And so he took us on and he said, you'll play the Sundays now. So we'd play from 2 o'clock until about 7 o'clock or whatever. We conquered that. Then eventually he said, oh, the Friday nights isn't so good. I put you guys on that. that's how we got to meet the big American acts like Wilson Pickett, Solomon Burke, and the very Vibrations. We supported those people. Almost everything that came from America, Sugar Pie DeSantos, the soul artists, we supported, and I learned a lot from those guys. Watching Wilson Pickett drown himself in whiskey or whatever it is that he drinks. Watching Solomon Burke's ego, which gradually became less and less because he couldn't follow the band. And he remembered that nearly 30 years later. And he pointed me out to his grandchildren, I suppose, as we were playing. I think it was Glastonbury, either Glastonbury or WOMAD, one of the two. And he said, you see that guy? That guy is not a nice guy. And they've got him here tonight again, and I'm going to have to follow him. I said, no, you're going to go on first, Solomon. He said, oh, thank God for that.
So then you do eventually get around to recording, and there was a bass guitar that was thrown in there eventually.
Yeah, what happened is Gene Latta, who lived right next door to my father's house, he considered himself somewhat of a dancer. And by now, I'd gotten very firmly into James Brown because I'd met James Brown. James Brown, when he came over for the first time to London, I met him at the Walthamstow Granada. Through a series of accidents, I got into the backstage after having helped Mr. Moore, who sold his programs to people, a big fat chap, Mr. Moore. I remember Mr. Moore saying to me, hey, you want to come in and see James? And I said, yeah. He said, well, sell these programs, man. And he threw a lot of programs at me, and I would go around trying to sell to the girls and guys as they come in. But nobody would pay any attention to me because Mr. Moore was so big and his belly was so fat. He'd go up to the girls and he'd bump them with his belly, say, hey, come on, you want to see James? Buy one of these programs, you know? So I got in with Mr. Moore, but as showtime came about, Mr. Moore took off, and I had to follow him and run behind him, and eventually ended up backstage where I met James Brown, helped Bobby Bennett, who was the valet as well as the dancer and singer in the, what do you call, the famous Flames. With that, I got to meet James Brown, and I stayed with them for 2 days as he completed his shows at the Brixton Granada and the Walthamstow Granada and the Brixton Granada. And I was there for those shows, helping to polish his shoes, put away his clothes, his wet clothes, his cufflinks, and, you know, all of that. So I was really in there myself, and Bobby Bennett, who did his hair and all of that. I learned so much from watching James Brown at the side of the stage. You know, I said, wow, yeah, this is the master. This is the lexicon. I have to have that kind of discipline when my band is going to make it. You can imagine when I heard one day, or saw one day in the, I think it was the Daily Mirror newspaper, Gene Latta saying he could dance better than James Brown. I hated him immediately. Immediately. A second didn't go past. I hated this guy, only to find out that this guy lives right next to me. So one day I'm coming home and I see him washing his car. I think he had a Ford Zodiac or something like that. I saw him washing his car, and I sneered at him because he had offended me somewhat. And then, so he went inside, I went inside of my house. We got kicked out of our rehearsal room and eventually ended up at my father's house, where we were playing one of the new songs that I'd written. And over comes this guy, knocked at the door, and I went and answered, and he said, can I come in? I said, well, what do you want? And he said, well, I want to talk to you guys. So in he came, sat around, and he said, is that song Otis Redding's? I said, no. I took real offense at that. He said, Wilson Pickett? I says, no. Well, who is it then? I said, it's mine. He says, yeah? You wrote that? And I said, yep, I wrote that. He said, if I asked you, would you come and play that song for a fella for me? And I said, why should we do that? And he said, well, I want to record, and I like that song. It would be a great song to dance to. And so I said, okay, because I had been looking around almost aimlessly, trying to find somebody who wanted to record us, and nobody did. And the fact that this guy was offering us a chance, I thought we should take it. And I said to the guys, we'll take it. They were all at work. I was still at school. And so they had to take time off. And we went to Kasner House, which is Mr. Eddie Kasner's publishing house and record company, President Records. And he took us down into the basement where they store all the sheet music and asked us to play this song, for Mr. Kasner. And we played it, and then they walked out, and I thought, okay, well, they didn't say anything. But then I realized that was a deal. They were going now to make a deal. And in that deal, Mr. Kasner chose not to give him the song, but to have us record it ourselves. And that started the Equals' recording career.
Oh, that's great. What song was it?
It was called I Won't Be There.
And so then is this right? A car accident happened and that was the beginning of the end?
That was September the 23rd, 1969. By then, we'd have made, Baby Come Back and the other Viva Bobby Joe. And, we'd have made some serious hits on the continent, into Africa. And we even had a semi-hit with Baby Come Back in the United States. So we had done quite a lot, and we toured a lot. The accident came about. We were being presented with the Golden Lion Award in Germany, where the Equals had tremendous success. And coming back from that to go home, we got caught in a kind of maelstrom, and the car aquaplaned, nearly killing all of us, but certainly injuring me very badly. The rest of the guys didn't get touched because we were driving in a Rolls Royce, which is a very strong car, I must tell you. I got thrown out through the windscreen and got hung up on a barbed wire fence, and it was terrible.
Wow.
And yes, and I thought, well, here's the end for me, because I couldn't see me coming back from it. I was so damaged. But, hey, as I told you, God does amazing things to people. Somehow, I was able to recover from it. I was able to go back out on tour with the band in a very short time. But I started to realize from quite early on that touring wasn't going to be my forte, because I didn't like the airplanes after a while. I could see myself and the airplane issue coming to a head. Mind you, the other guys also didn't like airplanes, but I couldn't stand it. Neither could my good friend in the band, Pat Lloyd. So together, we were ramping up each other's fare. And also the band started to frizzle apart. It's funny how things happen. In 1970, we had the hit Black Skin, Blue Eyed Boys, recorded it then. And by 1971, it was certainly a massive hit around the world. And then things started to go awry. I got in 71 the heart problem. I suggested to the fellas that I should really stay in the studio, which is my first love, and make their music, make their tracks, and they come in and sing whenever they have the time and so on. And their manager, by now we had two separate managers for reasons that I'm not about to discuss here. We had two separate managers, and their managers thought that would be too sweet for me. Ostensibly kicked me out of the band, with more than little assistance. And so I was out. I never wanted to be a solo artist. I was quite content to write songs, produce records, and be a part of a brotherhood that we had set up since 1964. That wasn't about to happen. So I thought, okay, I'll go home and think about my position. So I did. After being healed with the heart business, I started to think, well, you know what? I should really build a studio. I knew nothing about building studios. There had never been a young black man in the whole of Europe who'd ever built a recording studio. It was a mystery for even the white guys, even the Beatles and people like this. The recording studio was something that other people owned. And I decided that I was going to do it because I need to be in the studio 24 hours a day if I can. I set about trying to find out, and nobody would tell me how to build a studio. Until one day I met a guy called Mike Fine Silver, who was very nice to me. I used to use his little studio. He had a 2-track Revox studio, and I made a couple of masters in there. And he said to me, Ed, it's not so mysterious. If you call this guy company called Alpha Acoustics, he will tell you how to prepare the room and everything, and he'll come down and oversee the thing. And Bob's your uncle, you just need a good builder. Eventually I got a good builder, and this gentleman came down, and I built a studio of sorts. That studio made most of my hits, made a lot of hits for other people too. I'd gotten hurt But that hurt took me into another sphere and enabled me to set up a career that was going to last over 50 years in this music business at the very top. And I am forever grateful to God for giving me the long life, because when you have that kind of heart problem, it's forever, really. I continue to be affected by it, but today you have fantastic technology that has enabled me to be strong and powerful and physical and able to do what needs to be done. If you've seen me on stage, you know that ain't no heart going to stop me. Well, that's the reality.
What is the actual medical condition you have?
Well, I have a dicky heart. I have a heart that at the age of 23 copped out. It just refused to work. I had to go in and they looked after me. I've continued. I mean, it's not a big secret. I've had more stents in me than you can ever imagine, but I am still here.
Do you think that confrontation with your own mortality helped you say, I can do anything?
Well, I always thought I could do anything.
Yeah.
I didn't need mortality.
Or helped embolden you?
Mortality put a time constraint on me. It made me think, well, anytime I could go. So I got to be the best that I can be today. Not wait for tomorrow to be the best that I can be. In every sphere of my life, I wanted to be the best that I can be. I'm not interested in other people, how best or how good or whatever that they are. I want to be the best that I can be. Even when I'm playing games or stuff or play squash, I'm not interested in winning. I'm not interested in beating the other guy. I'm interested in playing the best shot that I can play. Because ultimately, when you leave this world, that's all that you're leaving behind. The best that you can be.
Was it any challenge at all to be the lead vocalist from the start? I mean, from your earliest recordings, solo recordings, it seems like you're comfortable with it.
Well, I'll tell you a funny little story about that, which kind of set me up, gave me a philosophy, but it came in such an odd way. After having left the band, I mean, I was asked by them to do another record for them, and I did, and then they wouldn't let go. Then there was another record I had to do for them. So I did 2 albums for them with me as a part of the band. They were not enormously successful at the time, but they've become very important records to the collectors and so on and so forth. And even we had the song Funky Like a Train, which became a track that was used in what they call American Gangster. You know, somebody tried to lift the song and they got caught because everybody knows Funky Like a Train. The guys who are dancers, just like they know Time Warp, just like they know Walking on Sunshine. You know what I'm saying? The songs, my records, took on a kind of life of their own. It was different, and it continues to be different because I realized that I can't occupy the same space as everybody else. I'm not given that space. I'm allowed only so much. And I say thank God for that. And in that time, like Usain Bolt, I get from ground zero to 100 meters faster than anybody else. So I learned how to use time to get what it is that I want. If you can do it, it's a skill. But having the heart issues taught me time is important. What were you saying again?
Oh, I just asked about getting comfortable behind the mic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always been comfortable behind the mic as long as I was not singing the lead. But having situations come upon you that you have to make do. And I went to a voice coach who was a very good voice coach by the name of David Keller. And so I decided, you know, if I'm going to sing, I should go and learn a little bit about it, because everything you need to learn that you want to do well. And I got the shock of my life. Having gone there, I met David Keller. He was teaching somebody who could sing like Pavarotti. I mean, you wouldn't believe what this guy was doing. He was a stage actor, and he did musicals. And I'm thinking, you know, Ed, you should just go back to building the studio, which is what I was doing. I was working in the yard. I didn't look too good. I was dressed in some battle fatigues. And I thought, I'm an embarrassment. What I'm doing here is embarrassing myself. But something told me to stay. And so the David Keller quickly got rid of this guy And he didn't know who I was because, I was dressed so badly in any case with mud all over me and all kinds of things. And he said, "What's your name, young man?" And I said, "My name," I didn't want to say Eddie Grant. I said, "My name is Edmund Grant." He says, "Okay, Edmund. And what are you going to sing for us today?" I said, "Well, I'm not." I said, "I come here to learn from you." He says, "No, no, 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 no. Everyone has a voice, Edmund." I said, "But not me." I said, "You have never heard anything like my voice." And he said, "Well, why don't we try something? You know this song?" And he started to play a song by the Stylistics. So I'm making excuses all the time, and I'm saying, "Listen, I don't. No, honestly, David, you don't really want." And he says, "Listen, God gave everyone a voice, and I'd like to hear yours." I said, "But I've heard you sing, and you sing so beautiful." And that guy, he says, "Don't let's concern ourselves with those things." He says, "Edmund, if I was a great singer, do you think I'd be here teaching you to sing?" So I tried to sing the song. And when we got to the end, he lifted his hands off as though he was Ashkenazi, and said, "Well, Edmund." I said, "Don't tell me. Please don't tell me. Just let me give you the money and for the lesson, and I'm gone." He says, "No, no, no. I want to say something to you, Edmund." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He says, "Well, you certainly cannot sing like Johnny Mathis." I said, "I told you. I don't need you to insult me." He said, "No, no, no. It's not an insult." He said, "But on the other hand, Edmund, Johnny Mathis will never sound like you."
Right.
He says, "And I guarantee you that if you keep coming to these lessons and if you listen to me and use what he called your instrument in the way that God intended you to, before I die, I will see your name up in lights in Piccadilly Circus. You're going to be a star, Edmund." And I thought, yeah, I took out my cash and gave it to him. And as I got outside the door, I says, "Yeah, all you want is my bloody money, But he gave me a little book, and that became my Bible. And I found myself coming back and back to David Keller. And exactly as he said, before he died, my name was up in lights. Not Piccadilly Circus, but at a place called Elephant and Castle, which is equally as important because it had a massive life-size photograph of me. And when it was sent to me, this photograph by my business manager, it also contained news of David Keller's death, which was,
wow.
yeah, it's almost a postscript. By the way, your friend and mentor, David Keller, has passed.
I'd like to touch upon Electric Avenue and how that was recorded and how you wrote that.
Electric Avenue is almost a shame in my relationship with America. I've always thought when the time comes for myself and America to meet, because America doesn't have one of me. I've come out of so many cultures and I've imbibed so much music, and it goes around in my head all the time, that I don't feel uncomfortable at all with any music. And that music is what I make. That's Eddie Grant's music. It's not pop, reggae, ska. It's not calypso. It's an amalgam of all the musics that I've ever heard in this world. And I distill it and make it possible for other people to see themselves in it. Well, Electric Avenue, it was almost too good because I had, for many years, been making hits all around the world, but not in America. America just caught me at a time when I had a number of really special songs. And those special songs came about because I had lost all the songs that I'd planned to use to make what I was considering the next album. Having had success throughout the world, except America, with my various offerings. In order to do that, I had to come to Barbados with my family, acquire a property, which is the Great Bailey's mansion in Barbados, and build a studio again, all of that. But before I could get to Barbados, one of the airlines, they lost all my baggage, including all my songs, photographs, the whole damn lot. And I landed in Barbados with a shoulder bag the size of about a foot by a foot. The company refused to replace, but how could they replace my songs? You know, they offered me £400. I told them they could keep it. I was now without my songs. It was naked. That's really how it felt, to be naked. And the record company was pressing me for delivery of an album, which they'd already paid me in advance for. They thought I was just another black guy who was going to rip them off, take their money, and run away to Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? I was under tremendous pressure within my family to get my family settled because they were still in England. I needed to get this studio built so that I could record the next album, for which I had no songs. So obviously, these are new songs that I've written in my la-la way and scribbled down a few notes and so on, and expected fully to come to Barbados and record them. And I couldn't. So I had to write new songs. I've got a friend of mine who was the lead singer with Boney M. You know that band?
Yeah.
They were the other side, the black side of ABBA.
Right. Rasputin.
Yes, they sold phenomenal amounts of records. And this girl was very good to me when I was nobody, so to speak, as a solo artist. She asked me to produce her. And what could I say? I mean, she had been very good to me, so I was going to be very good to her. But the studio was not yet finished. The roof was still off and the equipment wasn't set up properly and all of this. But she booked a time to come, and I had the most fantastic engineer and technician who worked with me, Frank Agarat. You'll see his name on the early records. A brother, a friend, and the greatest sound engineer that you put your hands upon was Frank. And he basically built Blue Wave Studios, which is the studio that I use and all those people, the Stones and all of these various people have come to use. So she wanted to come. And what could I say? Don't come? There I was, workers working in the place. She wants to make records. And I said, well, okay, I'll make your records when the workers are going home. And after I've finished making yours, I'll make mine. So Killer on the Rampage was made at the same time as I was making tracks for Marcia Barrett, as she is called. And when I'm finished with her early in the morning, I would continue making my own records. I would continue making Electric Avenue. And I started off with I Don't Want to Dance because that was the first one that came into my mind, and I put that down. And then Electric Avenue was the second one, and War Party was the third one, and It's All in You was the fourth one, and so on and so forth. You know, I can't remember all of them, but that's how the records were made. Just me and Frank. Frank behind the desk sleeping, and me at the instrument playing. And the only time that he would jump up is when the tape slipped off. You know, in those days you had the multi-track tape. It's just going whoosh, 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 whoosh. Well, when Frank got tired and he dropped to sleep, that's when he would wake up. And then he'd set me up again for the next instrument, and so on and so forth. We had a great relationship. We have a great relationship. So Electric Avenue was born out of such miserable circumstances, but I was enjoying myself. I always enjoy myself making records. I don't have too many people around when I'm doing it. It doesn't matter if people were around. I could make music with my mother around, anybody around. But because of the hours that I used to keep, which even worsened my heart condition, many people were not around and so on and so forth. Just myself and Frank in there arguing and whatever it is and getting things done. Electric Avenue is, you know, it's a crossbreed, I would say, between rock, reggae, and James Brown. It's and that's why it's had such a long life, because a young white kid listening to it with all the heavy guitar and that, he can immediately lock into it. A guy who likes only reggae, he can lock in to the bass line. I had Dave Stewart ask me one time, man, how did you get that bass? I says, like getting to Carnegie Hall. You just practice, You practice
Right.
with the instruments you got, not what everybody else is playing. I can have 2, 3 basses on a track. I can have 5 hi-hats on a track, just as long as it makes me feel good. When it makes me feel good, I know there must be a million people out there who it will make feel good as well. The whole process of making it, the only time I think myself and Frank ever had a serious discussion, I have to put it that way, about a track was Electric Avenue, because he considered the what you would call the motorbike sound to it, which it was. It is distortion, but I loved it, and he did not love it. He said, "Man, Ed, you set your standards so high, and you're going to use distortion like that. It's that's not the sound." I said, "I know." He was going for a different sound, but that just happened to pass by, and I said, "That's it." And he said, "No, that's not it." I said, "Frank, that's it. Trust me, I can hear it on Kiss FM. That's it." "Oh, okay." And we continued. So that's the only point of disagreement we've ever had in a recording studio.
I love how you're talking about like the way it does cross genres, and as a little kid, watching the video where you step into the water, it was just fired my imagination up. Is marvelous.
Oh, listen, I mean, the whole thing about it is instant over a long period of time. I don't know if you can understand that. Instant over a long period of time. That's how I make music. And so I hear that music a million times, and I'm not someone who sits there glorifying in his skills or in his anything. I do what's necessary. I wipe a whole track if necessary. I've done it many times, and come back and be totally happy instead of being partially happy.
Right.
I love the music, and the music loves me back. It's not about trial and error. It's about trial, continuous trial until you get it right.
Yeah.
And with the technology that we have today, had I had that technology when I first started making music, because you have no idea the amount of music that I've made. And some of it you know, and some of it you don't know. And some of it is on the internet, and others are all over the places in collectors' bins and what have you.
Right.
I have experimented with every kind of living music that there must be in the charts and other places.
I saw, actually, you mentioned the internet. Somebody was releasing music as Eddie Grant, EDDIE, and doing your hits on...
Criminals.
Yeah, ridiculous. Horrible versions, too.
We have allowed these things to happen. Maybe ultimately it will be for the good or whatever it is. I don't think it is for the good. I mean, somebody can try to imitate me, or they can try. There is only one me. And if one me isn't enough, then tough. They don't know what I'm going to make next. I could come out with a totally pop-oriented record, which I think will probably be my next record anyway.
Oh, cool.
I can do anything with music.
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned crossing genres, and you've done so much with soca and ring bang. And what is it that's so important to you about blending all these genres?
The world is the greatest blend that one can contemplate. We may not agree wholeheartedly with everything each other does, but we need each other to survive. Likewise, music does the same sort of thing. It doesn't matter which country you're from, how you try to do this or how you try to do that. Ultimately, you will make the music that makes you happy. And I just happen to have many cultures. The country I came from originally has many cultures. So by the time I was 12 years old, I know ragas from India. I've listened to Chinese music. I've listened to African music. I've listened to what we call kwekwe. I've listened to Surinamese music. I've listened to music coming out of Latin America from Venezuela. I listened to music coming out of Cuba, Dominican Republic, merengue. And then all of a sudden to be in rock and roll as well. So I could play all of that shit with rock. I can do amazing things with the music that goes around in my head forever till I'm 150 years old. Age, I'm like the blues guys, the old blues guys. Age doesn't matter. B.B. King. These are all my mentors. Sonny Boy Williamson, Howling Wolf. These are all people that they're my mentors that I've learned from. James Brown, Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters,
Yeah.
Hubert Sumlin. I mean, the most incredible people. And on the other hand, Miles Davis, when I was playing trumpet, I even wore a coat that looked like Miles for a time. I am many, many people. And the fact is that when people look to judge my music, they're judging nonsense because it's not filed under anything. It is what it is.
Right. I love that you had that one album titled File Under Rock. It's just perfect.
Correct.
Yeah. So you mentioned you'd wished your relationship with America were maybe with a different song. What song would you have wished that America would have discovered instead of Electric Avenue?
I Don't Want to Dance was number one in almost every country in the world apart from America.
Yeah.
Electric Avenue was number two everywhere in the world. And it was even number two, both number one and number two in America, because America had Cashbox at the time, in which it was number one, and in Billboard, it was number two. So I saw, because I had I Don't Want to Dance out at first, and it did such amazing business. It just whopped the whole world. I thought, wow. So, okay, when America decided, because by then America was going to put out Electric Avenue. So I said, yeah, do that. And then I'm going to bring the song, the melody that's going to kill them, which is I Don't Want to Dance. Fantastic melody.
Yeah.
But the DJs in America and the broadcasters on the radio across America would not stop playing Electric Avenue till today. Until today, it's still one of my top performing songs. It's in more films than you can ever imagine. It's like a part of American culture. And that video just came at a time when America was having problems with MTV and black artists and everything. Myself and Michael Jackson cracked that shit open. Then followed Prince and one or two other guys, But we cracked America wide open with that particular song. And Steve Barron did both Billie Jean and Electric Avenue's video. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't.
But so both his videos, and Steve is an incredibly talented guy. I just really leave everything in his hands, and I know that I'm going to get a first-class job. He did both Electric Avenue and I Don't Want to Dance, the videos too. So I thought I was going to kill America, metaphorically speaking, but just they would not let go of the damn song. And so America never got to hear I Don't Want to Dance.
Right. I remember it as a single, though. I do remember on Friday night videos, actually. And I was really excited about that.
If you want to see an audience in their honesty and in their love for a song, you have to see Glastonbury singing I Don't Want to Dance.
Oh, awesome.
It's just awe-inspiring, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they sing Electric Avenue as well, but it doesn't bring about that loving feeling, which is always imbued in my music.
Yeah.
Even in Electric Avenue. America loved the tension of Electric Avenue.
Yeah. There's something political about it that's...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. How about Police on My Back, the Clash version? Are you a fan?
I love the Clash version. It's one of the few records of songs of mine that has been covered that I can honestly say I like.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like their delivery of it, their interpretation of it. Yeah, I just like it. I've told them that when Strummer was alive. We met, we played cricket together, and he came to visit me in Barbados, he and Simonon.
One final thing I'd like to ask you is at what point did your dad stop wishing you'd become a doctor?
My dad never stopped wishing me to become a doctor. My dad has gone to his grave telling me, and it's funny how things work out in life. He said, oh, well, now you've had all this fame and success and so on. so young, you can now go and study the medicine. Because I've never stopped studying medicine, you know. Even now, I read all the journals. Up now with the internet, I can look at all the new advances in technology and medicine and this and that. I never have stopped liking medicine. But my father, he went to his grave with it. And then after he passed, the University of Guyana, as though to be a cruel joke, made me into a doctor of letters. So I suppose my father is quite happy wherever he is now.
And I hope you're happy wherever you are now. That wasn't meant to suggest that you're listening to this from beyond the Great Vale. It's just, wherever you are, in your car, out for a walk, or just sheltering at home as we do these days. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. And thank you also to Eddie as well as Maria and Pauline Grant. This episode was edited by Talia Smith, mastered by Melissa Henderson, who, by the way, just graduated Berklee College of Music. Congrats, Melissa. It was a pleasure to work with you over the past 4 years, and I wish you all the success in the world. And listeners, you need to check her out. MelissaHendersonGuitarist.com, and she spells Melissa Millisa. Anyway, MelissaHendersonGuitarist.com. She is one of the best guitarists I have ever heard, and also a talented masterer. All visual assets coordinated by Mike DeBenedictis and social media by Brooke Larson. Web assistance courtesy of Mark Thomas, Steve Zimmerman, Joe McDonough, and Chris Keene. I wrote and recorded the Music Is My Life theme song, but the expert remixing comes courtesy of Lily Dickinson. Thanks also to Gabriel Reifer Cohen for additional tech support. Alright, so at the top of the show, I told you about how you can receive a $100 discount on a Berklee online course. Here's how. Head over to musicismylifepod.com and redeem this special offer. That's it. Bam! $100 off right there, and you'll also get a link to all sorts of free resources. Join us on May 25th when our guest will be Sam Hales of Jungle Giants. Stay healthy, listeners. We'll talk soon.